Welcome to a very special program tonight on VH1. Stand by for a world exclusive. Now, we have for you the first ever acoustic performance from Genesis and their first televised performance with new lead vocalist Ray Wilson. And it's all coming to you absolutely live via satellite from Berlin. We'll also be hearing from the band as we talk to Mike Rutherford, Tony Banks and Ray about their brand new album, Calling All Stations, the new lineup and a whole load more. So please don't move. We're just minutes away from handing over to our colleagues in Berlin. But right now, this is the new look Genesis in action on video. It's the first release from the new album and it's called Congo.
Guten Abend und willkommen aus Berlin. Wir sind hier im Fernsehturm am Alexanderplatz für die europäische Pressekonferenz von Genesis. Es wird aber viel mehr als nur eine Pressekonferenz. Hi and welcome to Berlin. Thanks very much to Pip Dan back in the UK who just introduced us. Hello to everybody watching on VH1 UK. Und natürlich guten Abend alle Zuschauer von VH1 Deutschland. Mehrere Rundfunkanstalten sind auch live angeschlossen hier in Europa und ich werde zwischendurch auch deswegen ein bisschen auf Englisch und auf Deutsch reden. This is very much of an international event though. There are a number of radio stations taking this live here in Europe. It's also being recorded for broadcast later in, for instance, South Africa, in New Zealand and in Australia. And it's much more than just a press conference. The band will be answering questions, but much more importantly, they will be playing live. They'll be playing a new song and they'll be playing a few songs that you might just recognize, but perhaps not exactly in this form. It's the first time that Genesis have played an acoustic set, and of course, It's the very first time that Ray Wilson, the new singer of the band, has ever performed before an audience. And it's a difficult audience, I know, because there are like 200 journalists standing in front of me. Es wird für die Gruppe nicht ganz einfach sein. Hier sind 200 Journalisten aus ganz Europa versammelt. Und das wird das allererste Publikum von Ray Wilson, der neue Sänger von Genesis, sein. Die Gruppe wird gleich hier sein. Vielleicht vorweg ein paar Fakten. One of the things that's always been interesting about Genesis is the fact that there's been no scandals and the band sells millions and millions of records. Oasis, the Spice Girls, 15 million. What's 15 million when you've more than 90 million records to your credit? Now, I read just recently in Q magazine an interesting comparison. They said that's like the entire population of Japan had all bought a Genesis album. The problem with that comparison is, of course, that all of those people would only own one Genesis album. And if I've been informed correctly, then Ray Wilson, the singer of Genesis, had already bought 3 Genesis records before they asked him to join the band. But we'll get to that in just a minute. I don't think I need to translate that into German. I hope you're all excited, are you? There's something special happening here. I know what journalists are like, but it's going to be very, very special. I was at the rehearsals, and you won't believe it. Would you please give a very warm welcome, the band are coming from back there, to Genesis, to Tony Banks, to Mike Rutherford, to Ray Wilson, the new singer with the band, and of course the new drummer with the band, Nir Zidkyahu, Genesis. The men almost in black. The man from Scotland, of course, in black. Well, everybody's in black. Nobody told me. I would have changed, you know, like, it's like... Okay. Wir werden gleich die Gruppe ein paar Fragen stellen. I'll ask a few questions in just a minute. But I think what you want to hear now, having heard so much from me, is some live music. You're going to take this away for us, right? You're going to introduce this one for us. This is your big moment, the first time live in front of an audience, right?
No.
It's an international European audience, so do this in 8 languages quickly.
I'll do it in Scottish.
I'm looking forward to it.
That's the one I did.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. We'll start with this. This is a song from our new album, Calling All Stations. It's a song called Not About Us.
Like I do. I'd rather be beside you. Everything we know so well. Tell me what you feel now. Show me what you think of it. Anymore. It's all about the reasons that we think we're fighting for. It's not about hate. It's not about pain we always feel. I know we have our problems, but we're not the only ones. It's not about you. Ask for some forgiveness for all that we have taken. There's nothing left now. There's nothing left now. It's not about us anymore. It's all about the reasons that we think we're fighting for.
from their new album Calling All Stations, which will be released worldwide on Monday. I mean, you must have answered the question a million times already, Mike, but that's why everybody's here, to hear the answer again. I mean, we'll be talking with this Scottish gentleman in just a moment. But how did you actually get involved with him? Was he on a long list, or was he immediately the guy you said, we like Scotsmen?
Well, we do, which is handy, but no, actually what happened was the band rose in before Stiltskin. Someone from Virgin sent the CD down, and along with a lot of other tapes and stuff. And I think what we're looking for really is just a sort of voice at the time that we could just imagine on Genesis that would work and be believable. And we heard some of the stuff on the Stiltskin CD, which sounded great. You know, that kind of dark, heavy quality he's got on his voice. And so he came down and auditioned, and the process began.
Okay, we'll talk about the audition in just a minute. Ich sage mal ganz kurz auf Deutsch für alle Zuschauer von VH1. Das war ganz einfach so, man hat die Stiltskin-LP damals gehört und meinte, das klingt ganz schön rockig, dunkel, passt ganz gut zu Genesis. So fing das alles an. Bevor wir weiter darüber reden, I mean, everybody's talking about, you know, Ray up the front here. Nir Z, I mean, it's an amazing name to begin with, you know, I couldn't believe it when I read this name. You're the drummer on the record, you're going to be the drummer on the tour. Let me just ask you one question. Are you the fourth member of the band?
I'm part of the band in the sense of recording and live shows, put it that way.
Well, it's a beautiful drum kit that you brought with you, Nir Z. I'm looking forward to hearing the table later on, yes? Exactly. Also der spielt auf der Platte auf jeden Fall mit und wird auf der Tour auch mitspielen. Es ist immer noch ein bisschen fraglich, ob er der vierte Mitglied der Band ist. Tony, we just heard, I mean, Mike said he heard the Stiltskin record. Finally, he comes down into the studio, though, which obviously for him must have been a difficult situation. It must have been difficult for you as well. What was your first impression, the first time you heard him actually sing live?
I think the first time we heard him, we were really impressed by his voice. He had a sort of all the promise that was shown on the Stiltskin album seemed to come out really, and we'd given him a very difficult task. We'd given about 7 Genesis songs to sing from various periods, and really, I mean, he had no problem with them, even though they're probably all pitched a little too high for his voice. And we found once or twice that you know, that we're really getting shivers down our spine, and we've really felt we found the man.
Also als anfing bei dieser Probe zu singen, musste er insgesamt 7 Songs von Genesis singen aus ganz unterschiedlichen Zeiten. War natürlich nicht ganz einfach für Ray Wilson. I have to say this because I love the irony of this situation. I haven't said I'm going to say this to you, but like, we're talking about Stiltskin. Stiltskin had a huge hit with a song that was used for a commercial for jeans. And Genesis, with their last album, had a huge hit with a record that was basically a parody of people selling jeans on television. I think it's an amazing situation that under those circumstances, regardless of your voice being so fitted, that you're now a member of the band. Were you very much aware of that irony when you first went down to see them?
Not really. I mean, I was obviously aware of the magnitude of the band. I mean, the success they've had. I kind of grew up listening to them, so it was quite a surprise and a great honour, I think, to be asked in the first place, and to actually get the job at the end of the day was very special.
Also, der ist im Grunde mit dieser Musik von Genesis aufgewachsen, was nicht ganz stimmen kann, weil er ist eigentlich 28 und die erste Platte erschien von Genesis 2 Jahre in etwa, bevor er überhaupt geboren wurde. Aber als großer Genesis-Fan war es natürlich für ihn damals eine Ehre. Come over this way a little bit, Ray, because we've got the microphone in the way there. We just heard from Tony. You went in and they'd got like 7 songs from different periods of Genesis. To what extent had you gone down there, though, saying, no, these are the songs that I'm going to sing?
Well, it was more, I mean, they obviously had an idea on which songs would perhaps show the best range and would perhaps be the most challenging. So, you know, the songs were chosen carefully. I think songs like In the Cage and Mama, which are quite demanding vocally. I just went down, you know, as if it was any job, really. You've got to do that and try and shut it out in your mind what you are actually doing. And, I mean, the nerves of the occasion were a good thing. I think it helped the adrenaline. And it got me through the audition, perhaps better than it would if I'd been just kind of nonchalant about it.
What would you have done if you'd not got the job?
There was no doubt about that.
Also ich habe ihn gefragt, was er eigentlich gemacht hätte, wenn er diesen Job nicht gekriegt hätte. Er hat gesagt, das stand nie in Zweifel. But it took 6 weeks for them to call back. I mean, what's wrong with these guys?
Yeah, well, you know, they're busy.
Es dauerte 6 Wochen, bis sie zurückgerufen haben, aber sie sind sehr beschäftigt, meinte Ray auf jeden Fall. Er hat damals unter anderem In the Cage gesungen, er hat auch Mama von Genesis gesungen, but the first song that he ever sung for them live is the song I think that we're going to hear now. This was the first song I think that you sang at the audition.
Yes. It was the very first song, and apparently this song was the really the reason I got the job. So I won't tell you what it is. We'll just play it.
I've heard it at the rehearsal. You won't believe this. Genesis live in Berlin.
Well, the key to my survival was never in much doubt. The question was how I could keep sane, trying to find a way out. Things were never easy for me. Peace of mind was hard to find. And I needed a place where I could hide, somewhere I could call mine. I didn't think much about it till it started happening all the time. Soon I was living with the fear every day of what might happen that night. I couldn't stand to hear the cry of my mother. I remember when he said that would be the last they'd see of me, and I never went home again. They say that time is a healer, and now my wounds are not the same. Well, I rang that bell with my heart in my mouth. I had to hear what he'd say. He sat me down and talked to me. He looked me straight in the eye. He said, you know, son of mine. You know, son of mine. When you walked out, you left us behind. And you know, son of mine. All those words, how they hurt me, I'll never forget. And as the time went by, I lived to regret it. You know, son of mine. But where should I go? And what should I do? You know, son of mine. Well, I came here for help. Oh, I was looking for you.
Honestly, I have to say it again. It's amazing. When I heard that at the rehearsal, I thought, he's not singing it like Phil Collins, he's singing it better almost than Phil Collins. I'm getting goosebumps listening to that. Beautiful performance from Ray Wilson. Tony, let me come to you for a minute, because before you pick up the guitar, one of the interesting things about the way that this record came about was the fact that you already knew Phil was going to be leaving, and you and Mike started writing, and at that point you didn't even know who was going to be singing for you. Was that an advantage or in some ways a disadvantage for you?
Well, I think it's probably both. It meant that Mike and I could sort of give free rein to everything we thought of. And we had, I have to say, a very creative period. We wrote lots and lots of stuff, a lot more than what's on the record at the moment, actually. And yes, so that was what happened.
Also die haben angefangen, diese Platte zu schreiben, da wussten sie nicht mal, dass Ray der neue Sänger sein sollte. Und das war teilweise eine Art Befreiung. But there's a lot of tracks on the album, which are basically, it seems to me, about relationships that have gone wrong. Now it looks like here's a new relation starting that's going to go right. So to what extent is the record itself in no way a reflection of what you're actually going to be doing, for instance, with this guy?
I think Mike and I find it a lot easier to write about miserable subjects, miserable people that we are. I think music, it's just the sort of music we write does lend itself to that kind of treatment. We've only written 1 or 2 happy songs in our career, and maybe we'll write a few more, but they're not on this album.
There's so much you could be happy about, though, you know. Terrible thought what would happen if you guys finally got to be happy. Also sie haben mehrere Songs geschrieben, weil sie meinen, wir sind sowieso also von Natur aus eher etwas deprimiert. Es gibt insgesamt über 30 Jahren vielleicht 2 Songs von Genesis, die so richtig ein Glücksgefühl ausstrahlen. Aber ich denke, also wie er das singt, that's a pretty happy sounding voice that you have there. Now we've heard a song that was a song that Phil Collins sung like 6 years ago from the album We Can't. Can you dance?
No.
Do you want to do a few steps with me?
No.
No?
I'll give you a hug. How about
Give me a hug, all right. I kann nicht tanzen. If you want me to dance later, I will, but not on TV live. Okay.
in front of all these people?
It's one thing to sort of replace Phil Collins, but I mean, for a lot of Genesis fans, they still think back to the time when Peter Gabriel was there. So because you're going to be singing some of his songs as well, you're replacing 2 singers, and that's an awful lot of weight to carry on your shoulders. Was it easier for you to sing the songs that Phil Collins had done with Genesis, or easier to sing the songs that Peter Gabriel did? Because I think you're basically a Peter Gabriel fan, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not strictly true to say that I'm better at Peter's than Phil's, or vice versa, really. I think certain songs suit your voice and certain songs don't. And I think obviously following in the footsteps of Peter and Phil, I mean, I can never truly replace them, you know. I mean, their careers are obviously massive. They're great stars. I admire them both a great deal. So, I mean, it's nice to be third in a row. You know, it's quite an honor to kind of follow in their footsteps.
Also der will auf gar keinen Fall Phil Collins oder Peter Gabriel ersetzen, das ist ja ganz klar, das geht überhaupt nicht, er will was ganz anderes machen. Wir werden jetzt noch einen Song live von Genesis hören, das wird etwas, das Peter Gabriel vor langer Zeit gesungen hat. Before we hear this song, which is a song, or a bit of a song that Peter Gabriel used to sing, any plans for a solo record, Ray?
Yeah, just after this evening's performance, that was the get the exposure. Yeah, I mean, I will obviously pursue my own career as well. I think that's the tradition of Genesis, that everybody does that, and you know, I've had a lot of music written for quite a while, and I'll release it when the time's right. But the calling all stations is the main concern, and that's what I'm focusing on at the moment.
I look forward to presenting the next press conference in 25 years' time, when the new singer of Genesis will finally be presented to the world. Wird irgendwann eine Soloalbum machen. Meinte nach diesem Auftritt, alles nur Spaß natürlich. So what are we going to hear? You introduced this song for us.
Well, this song goes back to 1972 when I was 4, but it's funnily enough one of the first songs that I ever came across from Genesis, and we decided to do a bit of it, given that the song's 26 minutes long. We're going to do a section of the song, and it's, for me, is a Genesis classic. It's Supper's Ready.
Lovely, thanks very much.
Walking across the sitting room, I turn the television on. Sitting beside you, I look into your eyes as the sound of motor cars fades in the night time. I swear I saw your face change. It didn't seem quite right, and it's, hey babe, with your guardian eyes so blue. Hey my baby, don't you know our love is true? Distance forms around our bodies. Out in the garden, the moon seems very bright. 6 saintly shrouded men move across the lawn slowly. The 7th walks in front with a cross held high in hand, and it's, your supper's waiting for you. Hey my baby, don't you know our love is true? I've been so far from here, far from your warm arms. It's good to feel you again. It's been a long time, hasn't it?
It has indeed been a long, long time. Now, of course, if this was the Eurovision Song Contest, I would have to say 12 points pour Genesis. That's a song that in its entirety is like 26 minutes. Now, the band will be going on tour. Is that likely to be a song that you're going to be playing in its entirety in the future on stage?
You never know. Maybe some of it. I mean, the trouble we have is that if you add up the new album, which is going to be probably 30, 40 minutes, and a lot of songs from the last two albums you want to do, and the old stuff, you're into a 4.5-hour set list, which is what we have at the moment.
Well, it's not a 4.5 acoustic set list, at least. So, I mean, you know, I'm sure that when you go on to do this on stage, it won't be 4.5 hours, but it will be obviously visually interesting. If you've already been working, obviously you have, because the tour is starting soon. What can we expect? I mean, there have been so many mega tours happening recently that you've obviously been aware of. What are Genesis going to do live?
I think the visual side, the presentation, we always get very into. If you've seen us before, and this will be no exception. Obviously, the music I think will be very strong, but we've kind of developed the last tour we had when we used these big screens, and we've sort of moved on to the next stage. They now subdivide into 12 pieces and move around, or get stuck in 12 pieces. No, I think it's going to be very strong. Also, we seem to be a bit earlier this time with we're shooting film and footage already to go on the screen, to go with the songs, and I feel we're kind of starting earlier this time, so I think it'll be very strong.
So you're going to get it right. Well, you got it right before you have to start that early. Die Gruppe wird demnächst wieder auf Tour gehen. Es wird hier eine europäische Tour geben im nächsten Jahr. They're going to start though with the next tour in America. Und wir haben gerade gehört, dass Mike gesagt hat, die haben bereits eine Menge Ideen, was die da machen werden. Es wird riesen Leinwände geben, allerdings nicht bei U2 mit einer riesen Leinwand. Nein, sie wollen das etwas anderes machen. Es wird 12 Leinwände gehen, die sich dann irgendwie bewegen sollten. I'm not quite sure I understand how these TV screens are going to move around. It sounds all kind of alien and stuff, you know.
The trouble with us is always, you know, whenever you do a new tour, you kind of push technology to where it hasn't got to. So we're always the guinea pigs, you know. We never get there.
That's the nice thing about going back and doing something like this acoustically, because there's not so much that can go wrong. Nothing's broken down so far. There's one song to go. I'm just waiting for it. Something is going to happen. It's going to be a flash of lightning or something. We're going to hear one more song before we finish. It's not going to be a new one. It's going to be an older song too. Is that because the new songs don't really lend themselves that well to doing them acoustically? I'd love to have heard you sing Shipwreck. You see, I had to put that in.
Well, the thing is, I mean, the new songs are on the album, obviously. It comes out on Monday, so people will hear that. I think that we thought this was an opportunity for people to hear me singing some of the classics, because obviously when you come to a Genesis concert, you're going to hear those. And I wanted to really demonstrate that those songs can still be sung, even though Phil's kind of moved on and Peter's moved on. I think that they can still be done, you know. So it's an opportunity to really let people hear that.
You're hopefully very healthy, because I can imagine you might start to suffer from schizophrenia at some point in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I'm as healthy as I'll ever be. I think it's a good time for me to do a world tour with a band like this. It's I've been through the rise and fall of Stiltskin, the success and failure of it. So I mean, that kind of develops a character, I think, to get on with it.
Okay, we'll hear one more song from Genesis and then we'll wrap up this part of the show here live. Ich möchte mich bereits an dieser Stelle von alle Zuschauer von VH1 Deutschland verabschieden, aber bleiben Sie dran, wir werden bis 22 Uhr über Genesis berichten. Es gibt ein längeres Interview, das ich bereits am Nachmittag geführt habe mit Genesis. Jede Menge Videos, natürlich jede Menge Geschichten auch. Thanks very much everybody back in the UK for watching, for tuning in. Pip, Dan, it's up to you now to take over after this last song. Und vielen Dank natürlich an alle, die mit uns verbunden waren über die verschiedenen Rundfunkanstalten, die das hier live übertragen haben. So what's the last song that we're going to hear from you?
It's Turn It On Again. So it's an early 80s track, and it's always one of my favourite songs actually, so it's a good live track.
Okay, are you surprised that his voice, the way he sings these old songs? I mean, come on, you must have been surprised by No Son of Mine. I couldn't believe it. I think a special round of applause for the way that he has fitted in beautifully to this band. Ray, Tony, Nir, and Mike, thanks very, very much for being here. And we look forward to this last song. We look forward, of course, to seeing you back on tour. Und vielen Dank, thanks very much to all of you coming along here. You can ask some questions in a minute, and there's something to drink, there's something to eat afterwards. I'll see you in a little while. Let's hear the song.
Thank you, Berlin. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan Bangs in Berlin, and thanks, of course, to Genesis. Magnificent. Stand by for more fantastic Genesis stuff after the break. Don't you go away. Hi there, welcome back. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. That was an exclusive first look at the new Genesis. But in fact, that's not all we have for you. It's time to get behind the scenes as we have this report on how Mr. Wilson found his new job as the singer of Genesis.
The new singer is Ray Wilson, who comes from a band called Stiltskin.
It has a sort of power and a passion that not all singers have.
Can anybody tell me?
Ray came down and he was very, very confident the first day, and I think impressed us. He sang some of the old songs, and it really worked.
The day I auditioned for Genesis was quite nerve-wracking, to be honest, because obviously the fact that they'd approached me in the first place was quite bizarre, but to actually be there in the studios and singing old Genesis classics was really quite an experience, and I think I was very nervous, but in many respects it kind of helped. It helped me sing the songs better and with more conviction, to be honest with you, because the kind of adrenaline kept me pumped up for it.
Send me to the Congo, you have to believe you can do it if you wanna, just do what you please.
When Ray came on board, first of all, it took a little while to just get an idea as to how his voice was going to fit in the sound, and that made the album, I think, a little slower than normal. But once you hear the kind of voice you've got, I think it pushed us into a slightly more, Tony said, a slightly more dramatic area. The album's a bit rockier and a bit darker, a bit more like old Genesis, really, I think. Sometimes you can imagine a voice singing songs you write, and sometimes you can't. Ray came down, in fact, on the very first day. He kind of auditioned him, just singing some old stuff originally.
Yeah, we were improvising stuff, and he just sang along, and just the way the voice fitted with the music and the chords and the sort of things that came to him naturally, like the things we really felt we could use, and that's a real asset.
But I don't think that's really true.
It seemed like forever waiting to get a reply once I'd auditioned, because I think it was something like 6 weeks before I did the second audition, but it kind of felt like 6 months. And to be honest, I think that I wasn't convinced I had the job anyway after doing the first audition, for whatever reason. And it seemed like quite a long wait, but worth it in the long run.
You say that I put chains on you, but I don't think that's really true. But if you wanna be free from me, you gotta lose me in another world. Send me to the Congo, I'm free to leave. There's always somewhere anybody can leave. Send me to the Congo, you have to believe you can do it if you wanna, just do what you please.
Here we are, Tony and I in the same band for, well, many years, let's not add it up, and suddenly you're faced with a new challenge, and you have to kind of reinvent yourself a little bit. And I think at our stage in our career, that's quite an exciting thing.
I'm helpless and alone, drifting out to sea. I can't believe what you said to me, even standing on the corner of a busy city street.
I'm pleased with the new album because it's been obviously a harder album to make. The new singer and a new drummer as well. I think the feeling that we look at it, or the way we look at it now, is that it feels to us like a Genesis record. Obviously, it's different because of a different voice.
I'm shipwrecked. I might as well be shipwrecked.
I think for Tony and I, the reason for carrying on really was because we enjoy writing together. It's as simple as that. We have done from the very start. You don't look for a change, obviously, but when it happens, having been here before, when Peter left, you turn it to your advantage. And I think obviously new forces come into play. There's a new singer, and new drummer, new guitarist on tour. The whole thing becomes a lot fresher.
I'm a million miles from anywhere. Where can I be? Somewhere out on the ocean. Just take a look on the horizon. What can you see? There's nothing there for me. I feel shipwrecked. I might as well be shipwrecked.
I think Phil left because I think being in a group is always a compromise. I think we accept that. And there comes a time when the compromise you have to make suddenly isn't worth what you have to go through.
I, in a way, was surprised he stayed with us as long as he did. I mean, he's got such a successful solo career, independent of the group. It must be very seductive to constantly want to go to that, so you can follow your own ideas right the way through.
And the pressure of going from solo Phil Collins to Genesis back to back does become a problem. It makes your sort of workload very hard, and you almost feel you're on a train you can't get off. I think I should add that it's a very amicable departure.
Calling all stations. Can anybody tell me exactly where I am? How different things look when you're on your own. Watching the darkness closing all around me.
Settled in with the guys very quickly. They kind of made the whole job easy, and it was really a relaxed atmosphere. Mike and Tony are very laid back, very professional, and they've just obviously gone through the recording process so many times, and we just seemed to get on well, and it just felt really normal from the word go.
We were doing a live Genesis web chat where the band answered questions that had been sent in by fans from all around the world.
Most asked question, obviously, this version of it came from Nick Rose. When did you know that the new singer would fit better than the others who auditioned?
The first song he sang was actually No Son of Mine. And from the moment he sang the first line, I think we felt it moved us. It sent a shiver down our spines.
My own musical background, I got involved with music when I was at school. My older brother, Steve, was playing in a band at school, and I kind of looked up and envied him somewhat, and to cut a long story short, eventually got involved with one of the school bands and performed at school. And I think from the very first time, the first time I was on stage, I'd played to about 1,200 kids. So it was really quite an experience to be 14 playing to that kind of audience. And I just loved it. I felt made for it. And I moved to Edinburgh and got involved with a band called Guaranteed Pure. We did our own band and worked together for about 4 years. Then 𝙂𝙚𝙣𝙨 came along. Obviously had a kind of massive success with them over a very short period of time. The largest venue I played was to about 50,000 people, which was Park Pop in Holland, actually, which was, I think, in hindsight, looking back, it was a good thing because it prepared me for this, to work with Genesis. It's been a good schooling, if you like.
Even standing on the corner of a busy city street, I still feel so lonely. Why'd you say you wanna be with me, but the next day say you don't? I'm shipwrecked.
Shipwreck was a song that I suppose in a sense recorded itself very quickly. It came from a sort of sped down bit of guitar sample that Tony took. And the lyric, I think, which is quite important, is quite applicable to today. It's about the fact that you can be in a very crowded room surrounded by people and still feel very lonely.
Without you I feel shipwrecked, but I can't let it show.
The staging for the new tour will be a kind of, I suppose, a development from what we had on the last tour, where we used screens quite sort of fundamentally in the show.
This is a view of what we have tended now to call the T-tray projection screen. This is the thing that's projected on from the front.
Right.
And when it's there, when the audience come in, it has a very sort of high-tech industrial silver metallic appearance.
Can anybody tell me?
The touring band will be obviously myself, Tony and Ray, and on drums Nir Z, who's a very talented Israeli guy who we found in New York, who played on most of the album, and on guitar Anthony Drennan.
So the whole thing would have this sort of fairly techy look.
I mean, I think it could be quite an original idea to make all this tech area part of the show, and it would actually be lit.
The most important thing, as I say, we need to work out is that we've left you guys enough space to perform on, and that you're not suddenly going to want to leap off your keyboard riser and run around, because if you do, you've got about a 7-foot drop.
Well, I'm famous for that.
You're watching VH1 and we are live with Genesis tonight. Coming now, we've an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at the making of the band's first video with new vocalist Ray Wilson. The track is Congo, and we know you've already had a little taste of the new video earlier in the show, but it's a pretty spectacular piece of filmmaking. It was shot at the world's largest water-based film studio in Malta, and it was directed by 𝙂𝙚𝙣𝙚𝙨.
We're making this new video for the single Congo, and we're working with 𝙂𝙚𝙣𝙚𝙨, who's the director I've tried to work with quite a few times, mainly with the mechanics, and we've never kind of managed to link up. But this time the dates fell together and it seemed to work out right, and he wrote a great script, so here we are.
I just thought, well, the Congo's a dangerous place, kind of thing, so you know, we're going to do something that's got an element of danger in it, and I kind of thought, I mean, there's an obvious reference to Salgado's Ants pictures, and we figured that, well, if we kind of took the element of all these kind of people in this kind of tribal kind of mass, and they're being controlled by this force, which is the riot police, and in the middle of that there's this kind of surreal girl who's like a predator looking for this guy. I just wanted this kind of, you know, somebody chasing somebody, and like two forces against each other, so, you know, it's and it turned out like this.
We have a script telling us what the basic idea of the video is, and it didn't even mention water. So I think Howard, the director, got here and thought, God, we can use water. Let's drown them. I was actually lifted clean off my feet yesterday with a water cannon, which was quite frightening actually when it hit me. But the effect was good. That's the main thing.
I said, you know, that the band will be shot in context, which meant that there'll be, you know, dripping girders and a little bit of sheet of water. But because I'd never worked with them before, you're never sure just how far you can push them, and you know, just by talking to them. I got the feeling that we could have some fun. And I must say they've been really good sports. It's not often I get to fire water cannons at at very expensive people.
I think the point is he starts off trying to see if I can do that and to get away with that, you know, and then he does a bit more and a bit more, and at the end he just sort of dumps all the water on you that he can find at one moment, you know. Well, we're always game to try anything, you know, if it looks good and, you know, it's fun and doesn't feel too dangerous.
There's always, I suppose, a pressure because, in a way, the video presents the band. You know, it's like saying, here we are, this is this new face in the band, Ray's the new singer. And so it's a first impression. So I suppose it's important, obviously, and I still think the music is really the most important thing, but it has an effect on how people see you, I think.
I don't really think you need to get the point of the song in a video. I don't really think it's about that. I think it's just getting the right mood. I think that's what's important. And just having it visually interesting. You could send me to the Congo, I'm free to leave. There's always somewhere anybody can leave. Yes.
I mean, I'm a musician, I'm in this for the music, and that's what I do it for, and it just happens to be something that one does nowadays, you know. And I don't have any particular problem with it. It doesn't take too much time. It does take a remarkable amount of money, but it doesn't take that much time. And it's fun, you know, and it's a way of of the song reaching the audience. I mean, I look at it like it's like a long advertisement in a way. It just shows you the music and in a sort of, you know, easily palatable way.
If you wanna just do what you please, you could send me to the Congo, I'm free to leave. There's always somewhere anybody can leave.
Looks fun. That's about it from Genesis, from Berlin and from myself. Look out for Genesis' new album, Calling All Stations, which will hit your shops on September the 1st, which is of course Monday. And the tour will be coming to the UK in 1998, next year. Yeehaw! Brinsley's up next with Soul Vibrations, so don't go away now. ABC ya!
This is me, thinking as usual about Dave. Dave is super. Dave can do anything. Oh, he's great. He really is. When pow, up pops my fairy godmother with a "I'll give you 3 wishes" routine. Wish number 1 is easy. Next, I wish we were both at the seaside. Come on, Dave, let's swim, I say. It's just not my scene, man, says Dave. What he really meant was he couldn't swim. I've still got 1 wish left, remember? Meet Mike. He swims like a fish.
Yes, I wish I didn't keep losing me birds. Then learn to swim, young man. Learn to swim.
If you can't swim, ask about lessons at your local swimming baths. Do learn to swim. It could save your life.